Did The Last Jedi jump the shark? Hey, I'm Bill Marion and you're watching A Nose for Life. In this video, I'll be reviewing the last segment of the new Star Wars trilogy, The Last Jedi. This video contains spoilers, and now that you've been warned, let's get started. First, I utilized the video description to its fullest. In the description, you'll find a lot of links along with a fair use statement and music credits. Be sure to check out all the links in the description. Also, when I review movies, I assume that you've seen the movie. So if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you know the story. And by the way, thanks for watching. I'll be discussing what I thought worked and what failed, and my overall opinion about The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi hit theaters December 14th, 2017. That night, I made a fan's response video, which you can see by clicking the tab on the right corner of your screen, which should be available now on most devices. Most of the reactions to The Last Jedi are positive, but unlike my Rogue One fans' first reaction video, there were several Star Wars fans who didn't really want to talk about the movie due to their frustration, or the fact that I couldn't let them use strong language to demonstrate their disapproval in Rian Johnson's contribution to the enshrined franchise. In that video, notice that I used the word first reaction instead of first response. Normally, an emotional, unplanned response isn't a good thing, especially these days when what you can and say will be held against you. But when it comes to movies, most of the time, what you're thinking when you leave the theater is how you really feel about a movie. You might dress it up and make it sound better on paper, but when I'm looking for someone's honest, brutal opinion about a movie, the best time to ask is when the fresh air hits one in the face walking out of the theater. Many people in my reaction video say that they need more time to process the movie before giving their opinion.
I'm still processing. I got a lot of questions about it.
I began interviewing people coming out of the first screening of The Last Jedi, but my tickets were for the second screening, so every time someone told me I need some time to process, well, my heart sunk into my chest. Don't get me wrong, I didn't let that distract me. The same thing happened to me when interviewing fans after Rogue One. I liked Rogue One, and Star Wars fans were divided over the first standalone Star Wars movie, and that Star Wars fans were divided didn't change my opinion at all. Granted, I'm the emotional guy crying over CGI Princess Leia. I do wish Disney would have left Gareth Edwards alone to make the movie he wanted to make, for better or for worse, just to see a completely different take on the Star Wars universe. Rogue One is not the prequel to A New Hope that I wanted to see, and the material in Rogue One wasn't handled the way I wanted to see it handled, but that doesn't make it a bad movie. With that in mind, I was really excited when some of the people I interviewed after the first screening of The Last Jedi said,
I think it's my favorite Star Wars movie so far.
I thought it was awesome. There was so much that I wasn't expecting, and I just enjoyed it so much.
That The Last Jedi was the Star Wars sequel we've been waiting for. Some going as far as saying it was better or as good as The Empire Strikes Back.
The movie was actually really incredible. It was probably the best one since Empire, in my opinion.
I captured the first reaction of about 50 fans. Statistically, at best, it's a tiny random sample depending on how loose we're defining random. And by the way, statistic gurus, you're more than welcome to light me up in the comments. So how much can you infer about the success of The Last Jedi based on a tiny sample in a small American city? Well, it turns out quite a bit. My oldest daughter Anna and her boyfriend Cody asked me if I liked The Last Jedi, and I agreed with the Star Wars fans from the first screening. I needed some time to process the information. So it's been a few days, and even though Carolyn and I are going to see The Last Jedi again over the holidays, or maybe a few more times because, come on, it's Star Wars, I think I'm ready to weigh in. Filmmaker Rian Johnson was given a difficult task. Star Wars fans demand a great Star Wars movie, that's a given, but Johnson is also tasked to expand the Star Wars saga and to make sure that the alternate universe that holds our favorite galaxy far, far away remains intact. Disney and Lucasfilms seem to like Rian Johnson a whole lot, and it's hard not to trust Disney right now. They're on a hot winning streak in the theaters and in the business boardroom. Disney and Lucasfilms are betting it all on Rian Johnson's direction and vision for the Star Wars franchise, as he is also set to lead the next Star Wars trilogy, and that's written in Hollywood stone, which means it can change. In fact, it can change while I'm making this video. After all, Disney burns through directors. But for now, Rian Johnson is holding a map and compass to determine where he's taking us for The Last Jedi. Johnson is drawing a brand new map, not just based on other Star Wars films, but also the wealth of information inside and outside the official Star Wars canon, not to mention what he creates from his own mind or creative team. All of that is to say, Johnson is transitioning fans from Star Wars nostalgia to a bigger Star Wars universe. So there are some things that we might have to accept based on what Johnson gives us in The Last Jedi. First, the Skywalker story seems to be coming to an end to make room for other heroes and villains. For now, it's practical to assume that the Skywalker family legacy is in the hands of Kylo Ren. After much speculation and conjecture, Rey is not a Skywalker. In fact, it seems that Rey's parents aren't going to be a part of her origin story at all. It's possible Kylo Ren can have a change of heart and become a good guy. That would be really cool. I'll go as far as to say I'd like to see that. I'm like everyone else in that I have my own set of fan theories, but for now, outside the chance that my idea about Kylo Ren Ren changes sides, which is unlikely because it's something I think would be cool, there are only a few possible outcomes for Kylo Ren, and none of them are good for the Skywalker legacy. So Johnson and JJ Abrams must be taking us away gradually from the Skywalker-centered galaxy we all know and love. Rian Johnson is also reimagining the magic of our beloved space fantasy, the Force. Johnson is giving us a less mysterious but more accessible and grand idea of the Force. Force Ghost Yoda has the power to burn the Star Wars version of the Tree of Knowledge along with the ancient Jedi text so that a new generation of Jedi can find their own path, even though the Jedi text really didn't burn, but that's a different story. Princess or General Leia, who has trained briefly as a Jedi, can fly through space using the Force. And Luke, well, the old beloved Jedi Master, can project himself and objects to other planets across the galaxy. But let's face it, based on our new revelation of the Force, the Jedi Academy should be more like Hogwarts. I'm not convinced that die-hard Star Wars fans wanted anything outside of a Skywalker story, and the original interpretation of the Force as a forgotten ancient religion known by only a few, or what I like to call old Ben Kenobi's Force, seems more exciting to me than Johnson's Force 3.0. Yes, I said Force 3.0, because let's never forget that long before Johnson, Lucas also reimagined the Force on a biological level using midichlorians. I call that Force 2.0. For me, Johnson's interpretation of the Force is almost as left field as Lucas's Force 2.0. Look, I hated the concept of midichlorians just like everyone else, but give me a second to explain. Like it or not, midichlorians are canon. JJ Abrams passed on the chance to fix the midichlorian issue with a simple line of exposition. JJ danced around the issue, making it to where Rey was never in a situation to be tested for midichlorians, and when Rey finally meets the Jedi Master, Master Luke, she finds him on a lonely island with no midichlorian testing machine to be found. Problem solved, right? Well, for now, I guess. But Johnson could have fixed midichlorians too. When Luke, Kylo, and Snoke take turns in The Last Jedi bad-mouthing the Jedis and waxing strong and poetic about their many mistakes, Johnson could have used one sentence to explain away midichlorians forever. Luke, Kylo, or even Snoke could have said, "The foolish Jedi, blinded by their arrogance, thought they understood the Force through the observation of midichlorians, not realizing how easy it is to manipulate tests and the very nature of the Force itself." Okay, I'm not saying that my explanation is perfect, but seriously, with just one line of dialogue, it's possible to forget Force 2.0. I'm surprised it didn't put midichlorians to rest, considering Johnson hinges the entire believability of The Last Jedi on one line of exposition. More on that later. So why am I talking about midichlorians? Why do midichlorians matter in a review about The Last Jedi? Because diehard fans pay attention to the little things like that, and diehard fans matter because when times get rough for a franchise, diehard fans will pay the bills. I don't know how I feel about Force 3.0, even though I thought Luke's finale was simply amazing. I think Mark Hamill gives the best performance of his entire acting career. In fact, Hamill was so amazing that I hated that he's gone from the franchise, save for the possibility of Ghost Luke. And look at it this way, if he comes back as a ghost, he can burn things from the grave now, just like Yoda. Speaking of Skywalkers, God rest Carrie Fisher's soul. The truth of the matter is that I liked Carrie Fisher's other work more than I liked her in Star Wars. Fisher was an amazing writer and actor, and she made me laugh, and she's missed. But I didn't need to see General Leia fly through space with her untrained Jedi powers. I understand that Jedis can do a lot of other things that aren't in the movies. I have some knowledge in official and unofficial canon, but it looked hokey to me. So many people freaked out over CGI Princess Leia in Rogue One, but I thought it was amazing, so maybe I'm wrong about Space Jedis. I'd love to know what you think about Space Jedis in the comments below. So Fisher has plenty of screen time in The Last Jedi, and I appreciated that. I really enjoyed that. It was touching, and it gives us all a sense of closure. But if we're honest, the next generation will not be as influenced emotionally by Johnson's decisions for Fisher's character in The Last Jedi. Johnson's best use of General Leia is to develop Poe Dameron, a fan favorite from The Force Awakens. And that's not a bad decision at all. In fact, that decision forces me to respect Rian Johnson's ability to tell a story long before we get to Luke's bait and switch, where Johnson is brilliant creating Luke's finale, keeping fans in mind by creating hints and hidden moments that are going to be a lot of fun during repeat screenings. Johnson's creative energy and meticulous attention to detail is at its best when it comes to Luke's last stand, rivaled only by Johnson's telling of Rey, Kylo, and Snoke. But it's Johnson's decisions away from the Force-related characters that really hurt The Last Jedi and keep it from being the best movie of all. Johnson creates tension by allowing the Resistance to fail where we've seen the Rebel Alliance succeed. The armada of the Resistance at the very beginning of the movie is trying to escape the First Order by jumping into hyperspace, but because of a good old-fashioned MacGuffin allowing the First Order to track the Resistance through hyperspace, the Resistance is forced to hold out as long as possible while they come up with a plan. Johnson almost sets the stage brilliantly. The tension is there, and you can feel it. If Johnson wasn't so amazing teaching us from the very beginning that every scene matters, it might not be so obvious that the Resistance isn't just outnumbered, but at this point, do the Resistance matter at all? And we can't say that numbers don't really matter because Johnson goes out of his way to make sure that we know that numbers do matter. He uses numbers to build tension throughout the entire movie. Johnson gives us the Resistance personnel numbers from the beginning of the movie and provides updates to the very end of the movie. He goes out of his way to let us know that this is a desperate situation, but he goes too far, almost to where it isn't even logical. If there's only around 400 fighting people left in the Resistance starting right after the bombing run, the war is over because those numbers end the possibility of recruiting other entities to join the cause. Within the Star Wars galaxy, any system considering the cause of the Resistance would decline joining immediately after hearing the news and receiving the report, regardless as to what they also hear about Luke's heroics, or a new Jedi named Rey, or a handful of people standing heroically against all odds and escaping thanks to a no-name Jedi and the Millennium Falcon. If the remaining fighting members of the Resistance can fit into the Millennium Falcon, there's no spark. Remember earlier when I mentioned how one line of exposition can fix almost any problem? Johnson, being the amazing storyteller that he is, must have realized that the desperation he's creating might also be too desperate, so he provides a simple line of dialogue saying that a call was made to other separatists or sympathizers to the Resistance. But we have to assume, based on the other information Johnson provides, that there are no other Resistance military units or bases. The people climbing into the Falcon at the end of the movie is everything the Resistance has left. And the scene with the little Force-sensitive boy at the end doesn't cut it. It's almost like Abrams and Johnson shrunk the population and diversity of the galaxy. Surely there are more Resistance fighters, but we're not given that information. This really doesn't work for me at all. Making it worse, at least for me, is Rey using the Force to help the rest of the Resistance escape from the mountain. I'm fine with Rey using the Force, but in that very moment, as I watched what was left of an army trickle out of the mountain, I lost the ability to lend my imagination to Johnson's vision so that I might be thrilled that a few of them survived. Johnson made the situation so bleak that it became unbelievable even in the Star Wars universe. And that's the moment my criticism of The Last Jedi began. I couldn't make myself believe that the Resistance and their actions provided a spark for the galaxy. And that was Johnson's goal, as he makes it clear with dialogue from the very beginning that this has to create a spark to motivate the galaxy. Did it? Well, you tell me, because maybe I'm wrong. I want to hear what you have to say about Rian Johnson's spark to unite the galaxy. I mean, obviously it's going to work because there's another movie, but is it believable, like Star Wars believable? Let me know in the comments below. You know, Gareth Edwards made a very similar mistake with Rogue One. By the way, I made a combined video commentary about The Force Awakens and Rogue One that you can see by clicking the card on the top right-hand corner of your screen. It's a little dated, but you might enjoy it. I'll also link to that same video during the end credits. Many people are talking negatively about the adventures of Finn and Rose. Finn and Rose leave the Resistance with Poe Dameron's blessings while chasing another MacGuffin. Here again, Johnson wants to create tension by giving us a timeline. They only have 18 hours to find a hacker who can disable the first MacGuffin that's keeping the Resistance from jumping into hyperspace. It bothers me that Finn and Rose can leave the Resistance flotilla. Remember, the Resistance has already been reduced to around 400 people at this point. It's a lot harder to sneak off with fewer people packed into one transport, but I liked Rose a whole lot, and I think she's a great addition to the ensemble. I just hate it that she tells Finn she loves him at the end. Really, Rose? Isn't that a bit too much? Too soon? I mean, Finn's a hero and all, and maybe you were going for broke, seeing as how this might be your last words, but if there's a romance implied, it was poorly developed, and I'm not sure what's going on there. As much as I really liked Rose, I didn't like our last moment with her character. But what I really didn't like was how Finn and Rose end up meeting Del Toro's character DJ. That's not to say I don't like the endless possibilities when it comes to DJ, and when he's on the screen, it's great. But almost everything about the sequence of events just before and right after we meet DJ is a mess. It was as if Finn and Rose and DJ were in another film, and maybe it's a great film, but unfinished. I've heard some people say that Finn and Rose's adventures didn't seem like it fit in Star Wars, and I don't agree with that at all. Rose and Finn's adventures felt like it fit beautifully in a Star Wars prequel universe, but without the CGI overload. Don't get me wrong, these scenes are beautiful, and I'm sure after a few screenings, it's possible that those scenes will grow on me. There's also the issue of time. Finn and Rose have 18 hours, and it seems like their excursion would take a lot longer considering they're thrown in jail and everything else. Star Wars movies are excluded from the standalone evaluation. We don't have to ask, would this movie be good without the other movies to support it? Well, it would be nice to say that, but Star Wars has so much history at this point that's just not possible. The question is, did Rian Johnson's contribution to the franchise take us to that galaxy far, far away? Here's what Rian Johnson did better than I ever imagined. He gives Luke the gift of a believable, complicated life, and this allows us not to only appreciate Luke's heroic finish, but to applaud his act of bravery. And Johnson does this in the most surprising, clever, and creative way. Rian Johnson also keeps us on the edge of our seat, and the movie never goes where you think it's going. And you don't have to be a Star Wars fan to enjoy Johnson's breathtaking images. Seriously, when you watch The Last Jedi on the big screen, every second is like being inside of the movie. Visually, it's the best Star Wars movie to date. I encourage you to watch The Last Jedi on an IMAX screen. On my next screening, I'm going to watch The Last Jedi in IMAX 3D. The sound is amazing, and I hope the team is nominated for some kind of visual or audio effect. Yes, there are parts of the movie that annoyed me, and it's not a perfect film at all. But what I liked about The Last Jedi is so much more valuable than what I didn't like. So I say, outstanding, Mr. Rian Johnson. So finally, no, in my opinion, The Last Jedi didn't jump the shark. There's plenty to love about The Last Jedi, and what I like most is that Rian Johnson made it to where we really don't know what comes next. And that gives Abrams plenty of room to blow our minds in the last installment of the trilogy. That doesn't mean I like everything about The Last Jedi, but the half that I did like, I really loved. And the half that I didn't like, well, I didn't exactly hate. But I want to know what you think about The Last Jedi, so let's hear from you in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Bill Marion, and this is A Nose for Life.